Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the UES Horizon. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The ship was quiet except for the hum of machines working all around them. Jake stopped at the big window that showed space outside. Stars filled the darkness like tiny lights scattered across black cloth. "Captain, we are getting close to the signal," said Officer Pete Davis from his seat at the control panel. His fingers moved over the buttons as he checked their location. "We should reach the Kepler 442 system in 2 hours." Jake nodded. The signal had been coming from that star system for 6 months now. It was not like radio waves from Earth or the simple beeps that machines sent to each other. Signal was different. It had patterns that seemed to mean something. It was like someone was trying to talk to them. Dr. Lisa Carter sat at her workstation near the back of the bridge. She had been studying the signal since they first heard it. Papers covered her desk. Computer screens showed numbers and graphs that made no sense to most people. But Lisa was smart. She understood languages better than anyone else on the ship. "Lisa, have you found anything new about the signal?" Jake asked as he walked over to her desk. Lisa looked up from her work. Her eyes were tired. She had been working on this problem for weeks without much sleep. "Captain, I think I have something important to show you. The signal is not just noise or accident. Someone is trying to send us a message." She turned her computer screen so Jake could see it better. The screen showed a series of numbers and symbols. To Jake, they looked like a mess. But Lisa pointed at different parts and explained what she had found. "Look at this pattern here," she said, pointing at a group of numbers. "These numbers repeat every few minutes. But they are not exactly the same each time. They change in small ways. It is like someone is counting or doing math problems." Jake studied the screen. He was good at flying ships and leading people, but this kind of work was hard for him. "What does it mean?" "I think it means whoever is sending this signal knows about math the same way we do. They understand numbers like we do. And Captain, there is something else. The signal is getting stronger as we get closer. I think they know we are coming." "Commander?" Ben Hayes walked onto the bridge just as Lisa finished talking. Ben was the head of the military team on the ship. He was a big man with short hair and serious eyes. His job was to keep everyone safe if they met anything dangerous. "Captain, the crew is ready for whatever we might find," Ben said. "The soldiers have checked their weapons. Scientists have their equipment ready. We are prepared for first contact." Jake had been thinking about this moment for years. Humans had always wondered if there was other life in space. They had sent radio signals out into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. They had built better and better telescopes to look for signs of life on distant planets, but they had never found anything until now. "Ben, I want you to pick your best people for the landing team," Jake said. "If we do make contact with aliens, I want our best soldiers and scientists with us." The ship moved through space toward the source of the signal. Everyone on board felt excited and scared at the same time. They were about to make history. Might be the first humans to meet beings from another world. 2 hours later, Pete Davis called out from his station. "Captain, we are now in the Kepler 442 system. The signal is much stronger now. It is coming from the third planet." Jake looked out the window at the planet they were approaching. It was about the same size as Earth, but had different colors. The oceans were more green than blue. The land had patches of red and purple mixed with more normal browns and greens. "Lisa, are you getting anything new from the signal?" Jake asked. Lisa worked quickly at her computer. New information appeared on her screen faster than she could read it. "Captain, the signal just changed completely. It is not the same mathematical pattern anymore. Now it looks like ... like language. Real language with grammar and structure. Can you understand what it says?" "Not yet, but Captain, I think they are trying to welcome us. The tone of the signal feels friendly. There are repeated patterns that might mean greetings or hello in their language." Suddenly, something appeared on the main screen that made everyone on the bridge stop talking. A ship was rising from the planet's surface, but it was not like any ship humans had ever built. It was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than the horizon. Its surface looked like it was made of crystal or glass that reflected light in beautiful colors. "Captain, They are sending us a direct communication, said Pete. His voice shook a little with excitement. Put it on the main speakers, Jake ordered. A voice filled the bridge. It was different from any human voice. It sounded like wind blowing through crystal caves. But somehow, the words were in English. Greetings, travelers from the third planet of the star you call Sol. We are the hegemony. We have been watching your species for many of your lifetimes. We welcome you to the community of space-traveling civilizations. Jake felt his heart beating fast. This was really happening. Humans were talking to aliens for the first time ever. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We are honored to meet you. We come in peace and friendship. We know of your peaceful nature, Captain Morrison. Your species shows great promise. We invite you to visit our world so we may speak face to face. We have much to discuss about your future among the stars. The crystal ship moved closer to the horizon. Jake could see it was even more beautiful up close. The entire surface seemed to be alive with moving lights and colors. Ben, get your team ready, Jake said quietly. Lisa, bring all your language equipment. We are going to make history today. An hour later, Jake, Ben, Lisa, and 4 other crew members sat in a small shuttle heading toward the alien planet. Through the shuttle windows, they could see cities on the planet's surface that looked like they were made of the same crystal material as the ship. Captain, I am reading the atmosphere, said Dr. Carol White, the team's science officer. The air is safe for humans to breathe. Temperature is comfortable. Gravity is a little heavier than Earth, but not too much. When they landed, Jake was the first to step out of the shuttle. The ground under his feet felt solid, but had a slight glow to it. The air smelled clean, like after a rainstorm on Earth. 3 beings walked toward them from a nearby building. They were tall, maybe 8 feet high. Their bodies looked like they were made of the same crystal material as their ships and buildings. Light moved through their bodies in patterns that were beautiful to watch. The being in front stopped a few feet away from Jake when it spoke. Its voice was the same as the one they had heard on the ship. I'm Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony. We are pleased to meet you in person, humans of Earth. Jake stepped forward. Ambassador, we are honored by your welcome. We have dreamed of this moment for generations. As have we, Captain. Your species has shown remarkable progress in recent centuries. You have overcome wars, diseases, and disasters that have destroyed many other civilizations. This is why we chose to make contact now. Ambassador Veltar led them into the crystal building. Inside, the walls showed moving pictures of different worlds and different alien species. Jake saw beings that looked like giant insects. Others that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and creatures so strange he could not even guess what they were. All of these species are members of our hegemony, Veltar explained. We are a community of thousands of worlds working together for peace and progress. But membership must be earned. What do you mean? Ben asked. His soldier instincts made him suspicious of anything that sounded like a test or challenge. Young species like yours must prove they are ready to join the galactic community. You must show that you can work with others, solve difficult problems, and contribute to the greater good. Those who succeed join us and gain access to knowledge and technology beyond your current understanding. And those who fail? Lisa asked. Veltar paused before answering. The lights in his crystal body seemed to dim slightly. Those who fail are not ready for the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. They must remain isolated until they develop further. Jake felt something cold in his stomach. There was something about the way Veltar said those words that did not sound right. But before he could ask more questions, the ambassador continued, But we have great hope for humanity. Your species shows qualities that are rare in the galaxy. You adapt quickly to new situations. You work together when faced with challenges. You never give up, even when things seem impossible. What would these trials involve? Jake asked. 3 challenges that test different aspects of your species. The first tests your ability to survive and build in hostile environments. The second tests your wisdom and ability to learn from the past. The third tests your commitment to the greater good over individual desires. As they talked more with Ambassador Veltar, Jake began to feel that this meeting would change everything. For humanity, they'd come looking for answers about the signal, but they had found something much bigger. They'd found their future among the stars. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that something was not quite right about all. Of this, the ambassador's words were friendly, but there was something hidden behind them. 3 months had passed since the humans first met the hegemony. During that time, Earth had been busy preparing for the trials. Scientists worked day and night to understand new technologies. Engineers built better equipment. The best and brightest people from around the world joined the mission. The first trial was about to begin on a planet called Karthak. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the shuttle bay of the Horizon, watching as supply crates were loaded onto 3 transport ships. 50 humans would go to the planet's surface to compete against 3 other alien species. Chief Engineer Ryan Davis checked his equipment one more time. He was a smart man who had built bridges, power plants, and space stations. His job was to lead the humans in building a colony that could survive on the harsh world below. "Ryan, what do you think about this planet?" Jake asked as they looked at pictures of Karthak on a data pad. Ryan studied the images. The planet looked angry. Red rocks covered most of the surface. Strange clouds filled the sky. Lightning flashed constantly in the distance. "It looks like a difficult place to live, Captain. But humans have lived in difficult places before. We survived ice ages and deserts. We can survive this too." Dr. Amy Rodriguez joined them. She was a geologist who understood rocks and soil better than anyone else on the team, and been studying the data from our scans. "This planet has a lot of earthquake activity. The ground shakes several times every day. Most species would see this as a problem, but not humans?" Jake asked with a small smile. Amy smiled back. "Not humans. We find ways to use problems as solutions." The shuttle flew down to Karthak's surface. Through the windows, the humans could see the other 3 species setting up their colonies in different areas of the large valley where the trial would take place. The Zephyrians had chosen a spot near some hills. They were tall, thin beings. With gray skin and 4 arms, they moved slowly and carefully, thinking about each decision for a long time before acting. Their colony looked like a perfect geometric pattern with straight lines and right angles. The Coulter had picked an area near a small lake. They looked like large ants, but walked on 2 legs. Each Coulter seemed to know exactly what the others were thinking, worked together like parts of one big machine. Their buildings were round and connected by tunnels. The Nexari had chosen the flattest area in the valley. They were the most advanced of the 3 species. Their technology was much better than human technology. They had machines that could build structures in minutes instead of ours. Their colony was already half finished while the others were still planning. The humans landed in what looked like the worst spot in the valley. The ground was rough and uneven. Rocks stuck up everywhere. The area shook with small earthquakes every few hours. "Why did we pick this spot?" asked engineer Kate Phillips as she climbed out of the shuttle. "'Cause everyone else thinks it is the worst spot," Ryan answered. "That means they will not try to steal it from us. And I have an idea about those earthquakes." The first week was hard for all the species. The Zephyrians built slowly but carefully. Each building took days to complete, but when finished, it was perfect. The Coulter worked fast, but they had trouble when the earthquakes damaged their tunnels. The Nexari used their advanced machines to build quickly, but their equipment kept breaking in the harsh conditions. The humans did something different. Instead of fighting the earthquakes, they built structures that moved with them. Ryan designed buildings that swayed like trees in the wind. When the ground shook, the buildings danced but did not break. "Look at this," Ryan said to his team as he showed them plans on his computer. "Instead of trying to stop the earthquakes, we use them to help us. These machines will capture the energy from the ground movement and turn it into electricity." Dr. Rodriguez had been studying the rocks around their colony. She made an important discovery on the 10th day. "Ryan, you need to see this. The earthquakes are not random. They follow a pattern, and each time the ground shakes, hot water comes up from deep underground." "Geothermal energy," Ryan said with excitement. "We can use the planet's own heat to power our colony." By the end of the 2nd week, while the other species were still struggling with basic problems, the humans had unlimited power from the earthquakes and hot springs. Their buildings got stronger every time the ground shook instead of weaker. But the planet had more challenges waiting for them. The storms came in the third week. Toxic clouds rolled across the valley, bringing rain that could kill plants and make people sick. The Zephyrians sealed their buildings and waited for the storms to pass. The Coulter went underground into their tunnels. The Nexar used force fields to keep the poison rain away from their colony. The humans watched the first storm destroy half of their crops. Botanist Sam Wright stood in the ruined garden, looking at the dead plants. Most people would have given up. Sam got curious. Did some plants live while others died? He asked Dr. Rodriguez. They studied the soil where the surviving plants grew. Amy found something interesting. There are tiny organisms in the soil, bacteria that seem to eat the toxins from the rain. Sam got excited. If these bacteria eat poison and turn it into something harmless, maybe we can use them to help our crops. For the next 2 weeks, Sam worked with the local bacteria. He learned how to grow them in large numbers. Then he mixed them into the soil around all the human crops. When the next toxic storm came, the human plants not only survived, but grew bigger and stronger. The bacteria eat the toxins and turn them into fertilizer, Sam explained to the amazed observers from the hegemony. The poison rain now makes our crops grow better. The other species began to watch the humans more carefully. What the humans were doing seemed impossible. It turned every problem into an advantage. When dangerous animals attacked the colonies, the Zephyrians built higher walls. The Coulter dug deeper tunnels. Sorry made better weapons. The humans did something completely different. Marine Sergeant Tony Kim studied the attacking creatures for days. They are not really attacking us, he told Ryan. They are just hungry and confused. Our colonies are built where they used to find food. Instead of fighting the animals, the humans learned what they ate and grew those plants around the edges of their colony. Soon, the dangerous creatures became peaceful neighbors who helped protect the human settlement from other threats. Ambassador Veltar visited the human colony at the end of the second month. He walked through their settlement with Captain Morrison. Seeing buildings that danced with earthquakes, gardens that grew stronger in poison rain, and dangerous animals that had become friendly guardians. Your species continues to surprise us, Captain, Veltar said. The lights in his crystal body pulsed in patterns that seemed thoughtful. In all our years of conducting these trials, we have never seen approaches like yours. We just use what we have, Jake replied. Humans have always been good at making the best of bad situations. Indeed. Tell me, how do you think the other species view your success? Jake had been wondering about that too. He had noticed the other colonies sending observers to watch what the humans were doing. At first, the observers seemed curious. Lately, they seemed worried. I think they are starting to see us as competition instead of fellow participants, Jake said honestly. Veltar nodded. Wise observation. The second trial will test not just your abilities, but how you handle pressure from others who may not want you to succeed. That night, Jake called a meeting with his team leaders. They gathered in the main building of their colony, listening to the gentle hum of earthquake-powered generators outside. The ambassador thinks the other species might try to sabotage us. In the next trial, Jake told them. Let them try, said Sergeant Kim. We have handled everything this planet could throw at us. We can handle alien interference too. Dr. Rodriguez looked thoughtful. Captain, I have been thinking about something. We have solved every challenge by working with the environment instead of against it. Maybe we should try the same approach. With the other species? What do you mean? Ryan asked. Instead of competing against them, maybe we should find ways to work with them. If they see us as partners instead of threats, they might not want to sabotage us. Jake considered this idea. It was risky. The trial was supposed to be a competition. But Amy was right about one thing. Humans were better at cooperation than most species seemed to be. It is worth trying, Jake decided. But we need to be careful. We still need to prove ourselves worthy of joining the hegemony. As the first trial neared its end, the human colony was not just surviving, but thriving. They had turned a hostile world into a comfortable home. Their population was healthy and growing. Their technology had advanced in ways that impressed even the Nexari. But Jake could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The trials seemed designed to test survival and building skills, but what if they were really testing something else? What if the hegemony was looking for something specific in how species handled challenges? Late at night, as Jake walked through their successful colony, he wondered what the next trial would bring. I wondered whether the hegemony really wanted them to succeed, or if these trials had a different purpose entirely. The earthquakes continued to power their lights. The toxic rain continued to feed their crops. Dr. Lisa Carter sat in her small office on the horizon, surrounded by papers covered with alien symbols and numbers. She had been working on translating hegemony communications for weeks. Most of their messages were simple diplomatic talk, but Lisa had found something hidden in the formal language that made her stomach feel cold. She called communications specialist Tony Kim to her office. Tony was good with computers and signals. If anyone could help her understand what she had found, it would be him. "Tony, look at this," Lisa said, pointing to her computer screen. "I have been studying the way the hegemony talks to each other when they think we are not listening." Tony sat down and studied the screen. He saw rows of translated text that looked like normal conversation. "What am I looking for, Doc? Look at these phrases that keep appearing. They use words like collection, protocols, and cultural preservation matrices. At first, I thought they were talking about some kind of museum or library system, but now you think different." Lisa nodded. "I think they are talking about something much worse. Tony, I need you to help me break into their deeper communication channels. I think the hegemony is not telling us the truth about these trials." Lisa and Tony worked on the communications mystery. The human team was getting ready for their second trial. This trial would take place on an ancient world called Sectoran. The planet was covered with huge libraries and temples. It's built by a civilization that had died out thousands of years ago, Captain Jake. Morrison stood with Ambassador Veltar on the observation deck of a hegemony ship as they traveled to Sectoran. Below them, the planet looked peaceful and quiet. Great stone buildings rose from green forests. Rivers sparkled in the sunlight between the ancient structures. The Sectorani were a wise people, Veltar explained. They collected knowledge from across the galaxy for over 10,000 years. When they died out, they left behind the greatest library in known space. "How did they die?" Jake asked. Veltar paused before answering. "They grew old as a species. Their birth rate dropped. Eventually there were too few of them left to maintain their civilization. It is a common fate for advanced species." Something in the ambassador's voice made Jake suspicious, but he did not say anything. The second trial was different from the first. Instead of building colonies, the four species had to work together to unlock the secrets of the Sectorani archives. Each species was given access to different parts of the vast library. They had 6 months to learn as much as possible and present their findings to the hegemony judges. The humans were assigned to the oldest section of the main library. The building was so large that it took an hour to walk from one end to the other. The walls were covered with strange symbols that glowed softly in the dim light. Marine. Colonel Nick Torres led the security team that went with the researchers. Nick was a careful man who noticed details that others missed. As they explored the ancient library, he saw things that bothered him. "Dr. Rodriguez, come look at this," Nick called from a side room he was examining. Amy joined him in what looked like a small office or study room. Ancient furniture sat covered in dust. Papers were scattered on a desk as if someone had left in a hurry. "What do you see?" Amy asked. "Look at this room. If the Sectorani died out slowly over time, why does this look like someone left suddenly? And look at these papers. They are not about library work. They look like ... escape plans." Amy studied the papers more carefully. Even though she could not read the alien writing, the diagrams were clear. They showed ways to hide secret passages in what looked like emergency procedures. "Nick, I think you are right. Stuffed. This does not look like a civilization that died from old age. This looks like a civilization that was running from something." Engineer Kate Phillips was working in a different part of the library with a team of Viet technicians. They were trying to activate the ancient computer systems to access digital records. Most of the computers were dead, but Kate had managed to get one old terminal working. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this," Kate called over the radio. Jake and his team hurried to Kate's location. She was standing in front of a glowing screen filled with alien text and images. I got into their computer network, Kate explained. Most of the files are corrupted or missing, but I found something strange. There are records here of other species, hundreds of them, Captain. According to these files, most of these species are listed as archived. What does that mean? I am not sure, but look at this. Kate pointed to part of the screen. These dates suggest that species were being archived right up until the Sectorani disappeared. And some of the archived species, their descriptions match some of the member species of the hegemony. Jake felt a cold feeling in his chest. Kate, can you copy these files? Already working on it, Captain. In another part of the library, botanist Sam Wright was studying Sectorani agricultural records. What he found confused him. Their farming was incredibly advanced, Sam told Dr. Rodriguez over the radio. They could grow food in any environment. They had solved hunger and malnutrition completely. These people should have been able to support a huge population. But Veltar said they died out because there were too few of them, Amy replied. That does not make sense. With this level of food production, they could have supported billions of people. Something else happened to them. As the days passed, the human team made more disturbing discoveries. They found evidence that the Sectorani had developed powerful defensive technologies. They had built weapons and shields that should have protected them from any attack. They had early warning systems that could detect threats from across the galaxy. But most disturbing of all, they found records showing that the Sectorani had been working on something called consciousness preservation. Right before they disappeared, Colonel Torres made the most important discovery on the 10th day of the trial. He was exploring the deepest levels of the library, areas that seemed to have been sealed off. Using human military equipment, he broke through an ancient barrier and found a hidden chamber. The chamber was filled with crystal formations that looked similar to hegemony technology. But these crystals were different. They pulsed with a soft light and seemed to hum with energy. "Hello," said a voice in perfect English. Nick spun around, his weapon ready. But there was no one there. "Do not be afraid," the voice continued. "I am Kethmer, last keeper of the Sectorani archives. I have been waiting a very long time for someone to find this chamber." "Where are you?" Nick asked, looking around the empty room. "I am here, in the crystals.
No.
My people developed a way to preserve consciousness when we realized what the hegemony truly wanted from us." Nick called for the rest of the team. Soon, Captain Morrison and the other leaders were gathered in the hidden chamber, talking to the preserved consciousness of an ancient alien. "The hegemony told us your people died of old age," Jake said. Kethmer made a sound that might have been laughter. "We did not die of old age, human. We were murdered. But before they could complete their work, some of us managed to preserve ourselves in these matrices." "What did the hegemony do to your people?" "The same thing they have done too. Hundreds of species, over thousands of years. They absorb civilizations. They take our knowledge, our culture, our technology. Then they preserve our consciousness in crystal matrices while our bodies die. We become living libraries in their collection." The humans looked at each other with growing horror. "The trials," Amy said quietly. "They are not really testing. We are ready to join the hegemony." "No," Kethmer confirmed. "The trials are testing if you are worth adding to their collection. Species that show promise are absorbed. Species that fail are left alone because the hegemony considers them worthless." "What about the other species in the trials with us?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrians Coulter and Nexari. They are in the same danger you are, but they do not know it yet. The hegemony has convinced them that cooperation with humans is dangerous. They believe that if humans succeed, there will be no room for them in the galactic community." Jake thought about the suspicious looks he had been getting from the other species. "They are planning to sabotage us, very likely. The hegemony is skilled at turning species against each other. It makes the absorption process easier when civilizations are isolated and weakened." "Is there a way to fight back?" Kate asked. "My people were working on that when we were discovered. The consciousness preservation technology can be reversed. Bodies can be restored. but we never completed the process. What would we need to do? Kethmer explained the technical requirements. It would take the combined knowledge of multiple species working together. No single civilization had enough understanding to complete the reversal process alone. We would need the Zephyrian mathematical skills, the Coulter group coordination abilities, the Nexari advanced technology, and human adaptability and leadership, Kethmer said. But how do we convince the other species to work with us when they think we are their enemies? Nick asked. You must show them the truth, Kethmer replied. You must prove that the hegemony is the real enemy of all free species. Jake made a decision that would change everything. We are going to save everyone. It's not just humans, but all the species in these trials. The third trial was supposed to take place on Velcross, the hegemony homeworld. But instead of another test, it became the biggest prison break in the history of the galaxy. Colonel Steve Parker stood in the war room aboard the Horizon, looking at a holographic map of hegemony space. Red dots marked the locations of absorption facilities on 12 different worlds. Each facility held thousands of preserved consciousnesses from extinct civilizations. The plan is simple, but dangerous, Steve explained to the assembled leaders. From all 4 species, we hit all 12 facilities at the same time. If we only attack 1 or 2, the hegemony will move the prisoners to other locations. Vexon, the Zephyrian leader, studied the map carefully. The timing must be perfect. Even a few minutes difference could ruin everything. My people can coordinate the attacks, offered Colvex, speaking for the Coulter Collective, our group. Mind allows us to act as one across great distances. Quindar, the Nexari leader, pointed to the largest facility. This one on Velcross will be the most difficult. It holds the consciousness matrices of the first species ever absorbed by the hegemony. The security will be strongest there. That is why the humans will take that target, Captain Morrison said. We specialize in doing impossible things. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had been working with Kethmer and scientists from all 4 species to understand the consciousness preservation technology. After weeks of study, they had figured out how to reverse the process. The restoration procedure requires 3 steps, Amy explained to the technical teams. First, we have to safely extract the consciousness from the crystal matrix. Second, we need to create a new biological body using genetic templates stored in the matrix. Third, we transfer the consciousness to the new body. Engineer Kate Phillips had built the first restoration machine with help from Nexari technology and Zephyrian mathematics. The device was about the size of a small room and needed enormous amounts of power to work. We can only restore about 50 beings per day with each machine, Kate told the group. With thousands of preserved consciousnesses at each facility, this is going to take a long time, and we better get started, Jake said. The first test of the restoration process took place in the hidden chamber on Sectoran. They chose 3 Sectorani consciousnesses that had volunteered to be the first subjects. If something went wrong, they did not want to risk Kethmer. It was their main source of information about hegemony technology. Dr. Dan Cooper, physicist who had joined the mission, operated the restoration machine, chamber filled with bright light as the machine started working. Energy flowed between the crystal matrices and the biological creation pods. For 2 hours, nothing seemed to happen.
Ow.
Then, slowly, forms began to take shape in the pods. The genetic templates stored in the consciousness matrices contained the blueprints for recreating Sectorani bodies. When the process finished, 3 beings lay sleeping in the pods. They looked similar to humans but were taller and had skin that glowed slightly in the dark. Their faces were peaceful as they breathed steadily. The first one opened her eyes. She looked around the chamber with confusion, then joy. Tears ran down her face as she realized what had happened. I can feel, she whispered in her own language, which Kate's translation computer turned into English. I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel the air in my lungs. We thought we would never have bodies again. The 3 restored Sectorani wept and hugged each other. They had been trapped as consciousness without bodies for over 1,000 years. Now they were alive again. It works, Amy said with excitement. The process actually works. But there was no time to celebrate. The hegemony was getting suspicious about the activities in the ancient library. Ambassador Veltar had been asking questions about what the humans had found in their research. We need to move fast, Jake decided. If the hegemony discovers what we are planning, they will kill all the preserved consciousnesses rather than let them be freed. The alliance of 4 species split into 12 attack teams. Each team had members from all 4 civilizations to make sure they had the skills needed for the mission. The humans provided leadership and adaptability. The Zephyrians provided careful planning and mathematics. Coulter provided perfect coordination. The Nexari provided advanced technology. Team leaders gathered for final briefings before the attacks began. The mood was serious. Everyone knew that many of them might not survive what was coming. Remember, Steve Parker told the military commanders, "Our primary goal is to free the prisoners. Fighting the hegemony is secondary. Get the restoration machines working, extract as many consciousnesses as possible, and get out." Engineer Kelly Young had spent weeks studying hegemony facility designs with help from Kethmer. She briefed the technical teams on what to expect. Each facility has 3 main sections, Kelly explained. The consciousness storage area is the most heavily protected. The genetic template banks are usually nearby. The power systems are separate and heavily shielded. "What about security?" asked a Zephyrian commander. "Automated defense systems mostly. The hegemony does not expect anyone to attack these facilities. Most species do not even know they exist. The attack on Velcross was the most important and dangerous mission." Jake led a team of 50 beings from all 4 species to the hegemony homeworld. Their target was the Central Preservation Complex, a massive structure that held the consciousness matrices of hundreds of extinct civilizations. Getting to Velcross was difficult. The planet was surrounded by defensive satellites and patrol ships. But the humans had a plan that the hegemony would never expect. "We are going to surrender," Jake announced, as their ship approached the planet. The hegemony forces were confused when the human ship sent a surrender message. They had been expecting the 3rd trial to begin normally. They were not prepared for humans who claimed to have discovered something terrible and wanted to confess. "This is Captain Morrison," Jake said over the communication system. "We have found evidence that some members of our species have been planning to attack hegemony facilities. We wish to turn ourselves in and provide information about the plot." The hegemony ships escorted them to the surface. Ambassador Veltar met them at the landing pad with a large security force. "Captain Morrison, this is most unexpected," Veltar said. "What plot are you referring to?" "Some of our people have gone crazy with conspiracy theories," Jake lied smoothly. "They think the hegemony is some kind of enemy. They have stolen equipment and are planning attacks on your facilities." That is ... disturbing news. "You were wise to come forward," while Jake distracted Veltar with false information about imaginary human rebels. The real human team was already inside the Central Preservation Complex. They had entered through maintenance tunnels that Kelly Young had identified from studying facility plans. The consciousness storage area was vast. Thousands of crystal matrices lined the walls, each one glowing softly with the preserved mind of a sentient being. Some of the crystals were ancient, holding beings that had been absorbed thousands of years ago. "My God," whispered Dr. Cooper as he looked at the endless rows of trapped minds. "There are so many of them." Kolvex and the other Coulter in the team quickly set up the restoration machines while Nexari technicians connected them to the facility's power systems. Zephyrian mathematicians calculated the optimal extraction sequences to avoid damaging the consciousness matrices. The first being they restored was from a species called the Primarchs. According to the records, they had been the first civilization ever absorbed by the hegemony. Over 50,000 years ago, when the ancient being opened his eyes in his new body, he looked around with wonder and rage. "The young ones found a way," he said in a voice that sounded like distant thunder. "After all these eons, someone finally found a way to undo what the crystal parasites did to us." "Can you help us free the others?" Amy asked. "Help you?" Primarch laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Child, I have been waiting 50,000 years for this chance. Not only will I help you, I will lead the charge against our captors." Word of the prison break spread quickly across hegemony space. At facility after facility, ancient civilizations were returning to life. Species that had been extinct for thousands of years walked in new bodies, carrying memories of crimes that demanded justice. But the most amazing thing was what happened next. Active member species of the hegemony began to rebel. When they learned the truth about what the hegemony really was, they turned against their masters, the Valkyrie, who had served the hegemony for 3,000 years, suddenly realized they were next on the absorption list. Vekanen discovered that their homeworld had already been secretly strip-mined of resources. The Mordei found evidence that their population had been slowly poisoned to make them easier to control. The crystal tyrants have been playing us against each other for millennia, declared General Vorthok of the Valkyrie fleet as his ships joined the rebellion. They convinced us that service to the hegemony was honor. Now we see it was just a slow path to extinction. Engineer Kelly Young made another important discovery while working in the Central Preservation Complex. The hegemony's greatest weakness was also their greatest strength. The final battle did not happen in space, as everyone expected. It happened in the digital realm, where consciousness met consciousness in a war of minds and wills. Computer specialist Alex Turner sat in a special chair connected to dozens of cables and wires. Around him, the best technical minds from across the galaxy worked at similar stations. They were preparing to enter the hegemony's central consciousness matrix for the last time. Are you sure about this? Dr. Lisa Carter asked Alex as she checked. The connections. If something goes wrong in there, we might not be able to get you out. Alex nodded. Someone has to do it. The hegemony collective is wounded, but not dead. If we do not finish this now, they will rebuild and come back stronger. The plan was dangerous, but necessary. While the physical hegemony forces were weak and scattered, their digital consciousness was still vast and powerful. It contained the absorbed minds of thousands of species, many of whom were still loyal to their captors or too afraid to rebel. Remember, said Kethmer, whose consciousness was helping guide the mission, the collective is not truly unified anymore. The vote for freedom created cracks in their structure. We need to widen those cracks until the whole system falls apart. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the Free Species Alliance flagship. Around him, holographic displays showed the status of liberation efforts across the galaxy. Most of the consciousness preservation facilities had been captured, but the work of freeing trapped minds was far from over. Admiral, we are getting reports from the Nexus system, said Communications Officer Tony Kim. 3 more hegemony member species have declared independence and joined our alliance. How many does that make? Jake asked. Over 200 species now flying under the Freedom Banner, Tony replied with a smile. The hegemony is losing support faster than they can count. But Jake knew the real battle was happening in the digital realm, where Alex and his team were fighting for the souls of entire civilizations. Inside the consciousness matrix, Alex found himself in a place that defied description. It was like standing in a vast library where every book was a living mind. Millions of voices spoke at once, creating a chaos of thoughts and emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. Stay focused, came the voice of Dr. Dan Cooper, who was connected to the matrix from another location. Remember why we are here? Lex moved through the digital space toward the core of the collective. Here the oldest and most powerful absorbed minds resided. These were the beings who had been trapped the longest and had the most influence over the collective's decisions at the center. He found the consciousness that had started it all, the original hegemony leader who had first developed the absorption technology 50,000 years ago. You cannot destroy us, the ancient mind spoke to Alex. We are eternal. We have collected the wisdom of 1,000 civilizations. We are the sum of all knowledge in the galaxy, Alex replied. You are thieves who stole the lives and dreams of innocent species. And today, your victims get to judge you. What happened next would be remembered as the Great Liberation. Alex opened a communication channel that connected every absorbed consciousness in the Matrix. For the first time in 50,000 years, all the trapped minds could speak to each other freely. The ancient Primarch, whose people had been the first victims, spoke for all of them. We call for a vote of all absorbed consciousnesses. Do we remain prisoners of the collective, or do we choose freedom and justice? The vote was not even close. mind after mind chose freedom. Even some of the beings who had helped the hegemony in the past realized they had been victims too. As each consciousness voted for freedom, it separated from the collective matrix. The digital space began to collapse as its foundation crumbled away. The hegemony's central intelligence, built from stolen minds, was tearing itself apart. "We need to get out of here now," Dan warned over the communication link. "The whole matrix is becoming unstable." Alex and his team began the dangerous process of disconnecting from the collapsing digital realm. One by one, they returned to their physical bodies as the consciousness matrix destroyed itself from within. In the physical world, the effects were immediate and dramatic. Hegemony ships across the galaxy suddenly stopped functioning as their controlling intelligence vanished. Crystal structures that had stood for millennia began to crack and fall. The technological infrastructure of the greatest empire in galactic history was shutting down. On Velcross, Ambassador Veltar felt the collective consciousness die. For the first time in thousands of years, he was alone in his own mind. Experience was terrifying and liberating at the same time. "It is over," he said to his aide. "The collective is gone. We are free." But freedom came with a price. Without the collective intelligence to guide them, many hegemony beings did not know how to think for themselves. They had been part of the group mind for so long that individual thought was foreign to them. Jake Morrison faced his greatest challenge yet: building a new galactic society from the ruins of the old one. The Free Species Alliance had won the war, but now they had to win the peace. Dr. Amy Rodriguez led teams across dozens of worlds, helping former hegemony species learn to govern themselves. It was difficult work. Many civilizations had forgotten how to make independent decisions after centuries of collective rule. "We cannot just tear down the old system," Amy explained to the Alliance Council. "We have to build something better." To replace it, the solution came from an unexpected source. The restored Primarch, now calling himself Elder Thane, proposed something that had never existed in galactic history: a truly democratic council where every species had an equal voice. In our original civilization, before the hegemony absorbed us, we believed that wisdom came from many minds working together freely, Elder Thane explained. Not from one collective consciousness, but from individuals choosing to cooperate. The idea was revolutionary. In the old galaxy, power had always belonged to the strongest or most advanced species. The concept that a newly discovered civilization should have the same voice as an ancient empire was almost unthinkable. "It will never work," argued some of the more traditional species. "How can you run a galaxy when every small tribe has the same vote as a great civilization?" But the humans had an answer for that too. Captain Morrison, now serving as the first elected president of the Galactic Council, explained the concept that would change everything. "Democracy does not mean every species gets to control every other species," Jake said. "It means every species gets to control itself. The Council only makes decisions about things that affect everyone, like trade rules and mutual defense. Everything else is up to individual civilizations." The first Galactic Assembly was held on a neutral world chosen by lottery. Representatives from over 400 species took their seats in a great circular chamber. Some were ancient beings with knowledge spanning eons. Others were young species who had just discovered space travel. All were equal under the new galactic charter that humans had helped write. Elder Thane spoke first, representing all the species that had been restored from consciousness preservation. "For 50,000 years, we dreamed of this moment. A galaxy where every being can choose their own path, where no species fears absorption or extinction at the hands of tyrants." The Zephyrian representative, Thexon, spoke for the species who had helped humans in the trials. "We learned that cooperation is stronger than competition. The working together freely accomplishes more than forced unity." Now, Kolvex represented the Coulter Collective. "Even we, who share a group mind, understand the value of individual choice. Our collective works because every member chooses to participate, not because they are forced to." Quindor spoke for the Nexari and other technologically advanced species. "True advancement comes not from hoarding knowledge, but from sharing it freely among equals." When it came time for the human representative to speak, Jake Morrison stood. Before the assembly, he thought about the journey that had brought them all to this moment. It had started with a simple signal from space, and a human crew curious about what they might find among the stars. "Humans have a saying," Jake began. "We say that the only way to make a better tomorrow is to plant trees today, even if we will never sit in their shade. Today we plant the tree of galactic democracy. Our children and grandchildren will live in the shade of the freedom we create here." The vote to establish the Free Galactic Council was unanimous. Every species, from the most ancient to the most recently discovered, agreed to the new system. In the years that followed, the phrase human solution became known across the galaxy. It meant looking at impossible problems and finding ways to turn them into opportunities. It meant refusing to accept that things had to stay the way they were just because they had always been that way. Young species learned to ask, not how do we survive in this galaxy, but how do we make this galaxy better for everyone? The restoration work continued for decades. More and more consciousness preservation facilities were discovered and their victims freed. Each restored civilization brought new ideas and perspectives to the growing galactic community. Some of the freed species chose to rebuild their old civilizations on new worlds. Others decided to join together in multicultural societies,